Stakeholders say Nigeria may finally be on a path to greater openness in the oil and gas industry, and journalists are expected to play a key role in driving that change. At a series of recent forums, media professionals, civil society groups, and policy experts highlighted the media's vital responsibility in holding both regulators and oil companies to account. Central to the conversation is the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act, or PIA, which hailed as a landmark reform. Critics say its impact on host communities has so far been slow and limited. Experts are now calling for a more inclusive, people-centered approach, one that empowers host communities to shape the policies that affect them. Beyond simple reporting, the media is being urged to actively engage with institutions like the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the Ministry of Petroleum, and the private sector operators to ensure transparency and justice across the sector. Now, joining me to help us unpack what's working and what's not working, and also what we need to change in the Petroleum Industry Act, is policy expert Jonathan Onoja. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us. You're welcome. Good afternoon. Grand. Now, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me on your program. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Now, let's begin with the big picture here. What are the most pressing policy gaps in Nigeria's oil and gas sector today? And what's your take on how they can be fixed quickly?
All right, that's on a quick one. Talking about the policy gaps in our current oil and gas sector, with what I am seeing on ground currently with the leadership of Engineer Gbenga Komolafe, I do not actually see or agree with it as a gap. Rather, I think that there should be a support and complementary rules of other oil and gas sector institutions to make sure that his achievements is well is well solidified. Today, talking about the policy or the gap that you have raised, which you have actually pointed out, I think what I will say as a person is that with the implementation of some of the PIAs, the gap are not actually seen much, and because of the regulatory leadership of the institutions like that of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, I begin to see and also agree with some experts and opinion leaders that the current leadership is actually giving to the people the true benefits of dividends of democracy. Take, for instance, the host communities before now have been facing a lot of problems, but with the coming in and the implementations of some of the PIAs, we're beginning to see that host communities are actually giving the true benefits, including other social responsibilities from the investors. And so today, we are now having this crude oil theft as it used to be. We are now having increased production capacity, and that has actually fostered some sense of transparency, and then enhancing that confidence on our oil and gas sectors from the foreign investors. And I commend dearly the regulatory leadership of Engineer Gbenga Komolafe for the wonderful work he's doing at the upstream sector.
Okay then, so it's been a few years since the PIA was actually signed into law. From your perspective, how well has the implementation gone, especially when it regards the communities that actually house all of these spots that will get the nation's wealth? And let's also add, with the media's call to action here, how can the media help these communities as well?
Yes, I give you an example of the spillage in that of the Ogoni cleanup in Niger Delta years back, where communities do not have good water, have access to good roads, and how they were actually being molested in their own land. But with the coming in of the current leadership of Engineer Komolafe Gbenga, that we are not actually experiencing again. The host communities are beginning to go into agreement with these investors, and with, it is because of the leadership role of these regulatory agencies or institutions that we see that host communities do not actually cry foul again. There is this agreement that they must honor. And so we are not actually seeing these host communities suffering again. We're beginning to see investors building roads, building hospitals, and all of that, carrying out other social responsibilities based on the agreement that they have with the host communities under the key provisions of the regulatory agencies. And so I believe that in terms of the media, how they have to come in, they're already seeing the transparency, they're already seeing the leadership qualities, they're already experiencing how investors are already coming in. And with our now production capacity, even meeting up with the OPEC quota, it shows that we have been able to stabilize our local consumption, and again, see how now we can begin to have surplus and export. While exporting, we subsidize for our country or for our nation. So we are getting it right, and I believe that once the media comes in, getting informations and educating Nigerians what the current leadership of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission under the leadership of Engineer Gbenga Komolafe is doing, I think even the host communities that are even benefiting from some of these PIAs, but they are not actually aware of who is behind it, why is all this happening. Like I keep saying, the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill in 2021 and subsequent action by Mr. President in August 2021 was a milestone that Nigerians are celebrating. But then I think it is the implementation of these PIAs that is one thing that I think we should commend the leadership of Engineer Gbenga Komolafe, because it would have been made very very impossible for us to begin to see host communities having good water, good roads, paying even taxes to some of these host communities with an agreement. How have we been seeing this enough trade from the Niger Delta, this pillage and all of that again? The answer is no, because of what? It is still back to the implementation of some of those PIAs where technologies have been deployed, AI intelligence and all of that has been deployed to now monitor the production processes. What we now produce is open. So even the host communities know what is being done. There's no exploration. They know how it is being done. And then
Jonathan,
they have even devised a means. Please.
About this host communities, what could go wrong if we continue to leave them out of the decision-making process? Are there long-term risks that the public should be aware of?
Yes. If the host communities are not carried along in all of these implementation processes, then of course there's going to be a problem. And this problem is going to be a fight back from the host communities, rejection, and often destruction. So that is some of the insecurity that we may likely have. But today we are not seeing that, because the host communities are being carried along. They know where is a mark for these purposes. They know where the oil are, and then they know where the oil wells are situated. They know where the production is ongoing. So they take note of those. They take cognizance note of some of those challenges, and then in some cases resettlements have been done. In some cases road construction. In some cases where some of those things are happening, schools, and where they can have access to good water, they have been able to provide an alternative for the host community. So I'm even saying that there are developments going far. The spate of development going on at the host community level is much. Even
now let's talk about that effect. Let's talk about that effect. Let's talk about that effect as it goes further from the host community. What practical steps should be taken to ensure that the PIA truly benefits every single Nigerian, not just the host communities?
Yes, the PIA's implementation, like one of its cardinal points, like I mentioned on other platforms before now, is now having the MPP, our former, what we call the MPPC or MPC or something. So now become, a limited liability company that is also working together with the upstream sector for maximum productivity. And so today, Nigerians do not actually go to, fuel stations or fuel stations to go and queue for maybe 20, 30 hours, like we used to see some persons go to fuel stations to go and sleep overnight, all because they needed fuel. So because of the current productivity level that we are having and sufficient for our local consumption, we are now having a sufficient, PMS across. And that has actually helped. Like one of the PIA's implementation is to support the local content and then support local refineries, which we are having. And so there's enough supplies to the local refineries, and that has actually reduced the economic rent that it used to be before now, where you will see somebody will tell that a cost of liter of fuel is 1,001, but then you have to pay maybe 1.5 or 1.7 because of perhaps even the fuel attendants now take that as an opportunity. But because of the surplus supply, there's no scarcity, inflation is nowhere to be found, and that is one of the benefits of the PIAs that Nigerians are already enjoying. I take you back to the days
all right,
of
Jonathan, my apologies, Jonathan. I've only got a few minutes with you, and I think I've expended that time. But you have spoken well. I think we've gotten plenty from all you said today. Jonathan, thank you very much for being with us on the news.